Good afternoon. We welcome you to the fourth of our unit record webinars. We thank you for the dedication of your time to participate in this training, and we hope that you enjoy this session. With me today are Carla Idle-Corwin, who is our Senior Associate Director for Financial Aid. Also, Becky Phillips, who is the Product Manager with the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges, IT, Financial Aid. Marla Skelly, who is our Associate Director for Compliance. And my name is Ann Boyles. I'm the Program Associate for the Student Financial Aid Division. We do have the audience on mute for most of this presentation in order to get a clean copy of the recording. We will be editing this session and posting it to our website for later review in case you would like to do that. In the meantime, we will be monitoring your chat box. If you will place your questions and comments there, we will be monitoring that and attempting to answer your questions as we go. Periodically, we will unmute the audience and take your questions. With that, let me turn this over to Carla.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And this session is being recorded for any of you that may have joined us late. So it will be made available, like Ann said, but just wanted to know you all to know it is being recorded, including your participation. This is my second year in this role with the Student Achievement Council, and I have some prior history on a campus. It's the 50th year of the unit record, as well as the 50th year of the state need grant, which is now transitioning to the Washington College grant. As you know, it's a historic year for 1920, but we're all talking here today about 2018-19. So you will hear us refer to it more as SNG than WCG, but we're kind of using those interchangeably. The purpose of this report is to provide us with institutional comparisons across the state and be able to measure the need of students, looking holistically at aid and unmet need. We also use this data when testifying and informing the legislature so that as they develop policy and secure funding, we have informed decision making. It also gives us a centralized data repository, which hopefully cuts down on the number of ad hoc requests that not only you receive, but that we also receive on behalf of all colleges. The timeline that you see in front of you is outlined in the manual, as well as, which is available on our website, as well as making sure you know that the report is due October 7th. We plead with you to please not wait until that last week to get it done. The reason for that is it gives us time to process edits and contact you should we need further clarification or corrections of any data, as opposed to waiting until the last minute when it's when the volume can sometimes be higher. WAFA is scheduled for October 22nd through the 24th, so we're avoiding any conflicts there. And again, just pleading with you to start early. We do take your completed reports and do an analysis in October and November, with the plan being to have report data available for legislative and policymakers in December. And then we also produce the profiles in January, and Ann will talk about those in a few slides later. The manual that's made available to you has 4 major sections, technically 5. And the ones that you're really going to favor, I think, or at least I did, was the appendices, because it helps you with your record layout. It helps you figure out what goes in what bucket so that funds are reported correctly by fund type. And so B and C are really helpful as you not only are doing your file layout, and I know that Becky does a lot of that for you for the State Board and programmers to make sure that the record layout is accurate. But then you get to deal with the system edits that either A, will prevent a file upload, and or B, that you have to address once it's in the portal. So encourage you to really get to know the appendices that are made available to you. You do your upload by building a CSV file for submission. Again, this is in conjunction with the state board staff and processes made available to you. It's really important that you include the header rows, and I know Becky takes care of that for all of you. The CSV file has not changed for 18-19, which is what you're submitting, but it will for 19-20.
Hi all, this is Becky from the current system that the CTCs are using. Most of the CTCs are still using to process financial aid. So as Carla has been mentioning, our part of our job at State Board IT is to do the programming for the unit record report. So we do make sure that when you run the process to create the file, that it does produce the file in the proper format, the CSV file. And it does include students who received financial aid during the 18-19 year. And I can verify I've been uploading my test files to the training Seesaw site at WASAC, and it will include the header row. And speaking of that, we do work closely with the WASAC staff to ensure that the file that this process will create for you is correct format and passes portal file edits. Carla?
All right. And so when you're figuring out which students to include, we're asking that you report all of your need-based recipients. So it's really high level, getting all the right students into the unit record report. There's 3 categories: need-based recipients, meaning they filed a FAFSA or a WASFA; need-based aid recipients with other programs that may or may not require a FAFSA or a WASFA; and then your non-need-based programs, specifically your student loans. One of the areas of confusion that I think sometimes occurs is staff get confused between what's a state board process and where is the handoff to WASAC process. And so you end up having 2 manuals to kind of make it happen, because there's this magic that Becky creates that helps you build the file, and then once you actually do the upload, then it transitions into our manual. And I know that's an area that we've gotten a lot of questions on that people get confused about. So you do have 2 sets of instructions you're following, but it's really kind of like the relay, and the baton handoff occurs at that point.
Carla, that's an excellent way to describe it. The first part of this journey, or this race, I guess you could say, does occur in the legacy system, both in FAM and running jobs and processes on the HPUX. Specifically, the actual job that produces the reports and files to for unit record is SM9738J, and one of its first tasks is to select their 2018-19 need-based recipients and the non-need-based federal loan recipients. Carla?
And so the intent of this is to capture all of your financial aid disbursements in a unit record level data that goes to the student level. Our intent is to get it term by term, so not grouping anything together, but actually literally term by term, student by student. And this year you're reporting on your 18-19 WASFA or FAFSA data or your non-need-based programs. In terms of the programs that you report, there's a list on the screen. I'm not going to read them to you, of the need-based recipients that are going to be included. And for 17-18, there was a program that was funded but not in 1819, and because it may be coming back, that teacher shortage conditional grant, we have left that field out there because we don't know right now. And so, not to be confused with the student teaching grant, which was in 1617 and got reported under other state-funded gift assistance. So all of this is in the program manual, but just wanted to point that out to you in case you're wondering why we're asking or why we include that field. Other programs to include are the federal need-based programs. We're really trying to capture all of the data to have a complete picture of student aid for students in our state. Becky?
Both need-based awards and non-need-based federal loans have separate processing table entries, and all of these are on the CIS WAT processing table. And we do have this laid out in a couple different ways in the unit record documentation that we'll be producing. I'm hoping to get that out there in the next couple days. So I will announce to our listserv when the program and the documentation, the manual is available to you. Carla?
For those of you that participate in the BFET programs, those are considered a subset of worker retraining funds, so that is the bucket we would like you to report them in. Back to Becky.
Yeah, and we do have a spot for the worker retraining programs, and so for those of you that have the BFET, your BFET award codes would go into the WCC 150-WKFORCET entry on the CIS WAT processing table. Carla?
Just when you didn't think any more acronyms could be possible, then you have table entries like that. So we are trying to capture all of your federal non-need-based loan information as well. And we understand you may not have as much data for your unsub recipients who are not receiving need-based aid, but we would like you to report everything that you possibly can. Looking ahead, so right now, 1819, the primary change is that we are asking you to make sure that you don't report state work study if you didn't have an allocation for it. There is a hard edit in there now that will not let you do that. In the past, it sometimes happened. And so we're not changing anything in the 2018-19 file layout, but just looking for consistency across all of the reports. You will again see a list this year for any unserved students that didn't show up on the unit record to make sure you review and respond to those, and trying to get our data as clean as we possibly can. Looking ahead to 1920, we will be adding additional file layout changes to include new programs, changes to programs, etc. And so just giving everybody the heads up, most of you have probably heard this a time or two, that those are coming. But for current year, because we don't have the ICE or WASPA transaction number field, if you have to do an override, we're asking that you please enter in the comment box the transaction number when you do the override so that we can match data to data. Be as succinct as possible, please. We will be deleting a couple of files in the CSV header or CSV file next year. They're listed on the screen there, and this will all come out in one announcement in the relatively near future because we realize there is some development for your programmers that have to go along with this. We will be relabeling for 1920 the state need grant to WCG. Becky?
Okay. I was just very thankful you'd said that there will be an announcement fairly soon about the changes for the 1920 reporting, because that does, as Carla mentioned, we need some time to make those changes to the SM 9738 program. And so we will be including those in that program next year for 1920. Carla?
The only changes in the valid input ranges has to do with the federal Perkins loan and the elimination of that program. So otherwise, the allowed values are listed there.
And we did, we have plugged in these max values or the limits for Pell and Passport to College. So if you do have students that have more than this, they will show up on the edit report with an error. So, so we now match what WASAC is expecting. Carla?
All right, and in terms of your reporting requirements, the fields that we're asking for you to report are listed there. We do ask that you report individual awards for each of the 5 terms, if you have 5 terms, as well as the enrollment status for each of those 5 terms in which money was dispersed. And to give you an example, if you have a student who is enrolled in 13 credits but receiving aid for 10 credits because they're taking miscellaneous fun stuff, if you're paying them at 10 credits, you would report them as 3/4 time, not full time. And so the enrollment level needs to match the disbursement level. And for those of you that are clock hour, if anyone has clock hour programs, you're likely going to have 5 terms that you're reporting for. If you are a credit hour-based institution and have, for whatever reason, a recipient with 5 terms of aid, you will need to reach out to us because it does require special assistance from us to make that happen. But we also recognize that because of worker retraining funds, for example, you may have 5 terms, or if you're transitioning from a trailer to a header or vice versa. Summer 1 is going to be your first term, and Summer 2 is the end. So keep those 2 separate and straight, if you would, please. And Summer Aid, review Chapter 2 of the manual for deep details, but it is, again, possible to have awards in both terms, and I kind of talked about some of those earlier. And if the student is enrolled in more than 1 term, if you have many terms within your summer term, you want to make sure that you combine the 2 of those together. I know some of you do like 4-week terms, 2 4-week terms, and an 8-week summer term, and so you would put those 2 together and report them in that Summer 2 term, for example, if it's if you're a trailer.
Okay, on the CTC program of SM 9738, included awards in B891 are placed in the Summer 1 location in the CSV file, and those in B895 are placed in the Summer 2 location in the CSV file. So we do follow what the guidelines are in regards to the 2 summers. Carla?
And for additional FAFSA and WASFA related fields that we're asking you to report, there's a list of them on the screen. Again, not going to read them all to you, but we do actually look at some of that data and do some validation, and you may get questions from us if something doesn't add up. You sometimes have duplicate issues with Social Security numbers, and we cannot accept duplicate Social Security numbers. So you will want to contact your favorite unit record expert, Ann, and Ann can assist you with fixing those. It does require some assistance from our IT team usually, so we get right on those as soon as you let us know. And the numbers have to match between the unit record and CSA reported Social Security numbers. So if you happen to run into one that doesn't match, please do reach out. It's important that we merge those and have accurate historical data because of QERs for both state need grant and college bound, and so that's why it's so important. And you will get notices on your edit reports. When you're reporting your year in school, there's a chart here that tells you where they fall. And we're asking you to report whatever their year in school was at the beginning of the last term they were enrolled and received money. So if you had a student transition from being a sophomore to a junior in the middle of a year and they got money in that first term as a junior, you're going to want to go ahead and report them as a junior at that point. This gets really tricky when you have students transitioning from seniors to graduate students especially, because it changes loan limit eligibility, et cetera. But we do recognize that happens, and you just have to explain that that's what's happened in the edit override. Other year in school considerations, please don't use what's on the FAFSA or WASFA automatically, because as we know, students aren't always clear on what their academic level actually is in the world of academia. And again, link it to the last term that they got money. And for code number 8 on that list, you're going to use that for any running start and non-high school grads who receive need-based assistance of any type.
In our system, we have a very nice HPUX batch job, SM9146J, that will look at the student's grade level. It looks at SMS credits earned, enrolled, transferred in, and will post the correct value to the year in school field on the FA tab in FAM. As Carla mentioned, for Running Start students who are receiving need-based financial aid, then you will need to manually enter the 8 into the year in school field on the FA tab in FAM before you run your final unit record, SM9738J. So this is one of the steps that will be described in our manual. So make sure you do run this particular process, this job, to make sure that the correct year in school is posted to the student's record. Carla?
Becky, just out of curiosity, do you know of many schools that are actually awarding for Running Start? Has that become pretty common?
I actually don't know. That might be a good question for those out there. Yeah.
Okay. I'll check with them.
Okay.
All right. Additional information that we are looking for, family size really coming off of the FAFSA or WASFA data, making sure that if you have a dependent student, the household size is at least a 2, and that if they are independent married student, 2 or higher, again, can't exceed the family size for the number in college. These are just some common edits that we have seen come through. For family income, Marla will go over this in detail in a future slide, but just making sure that you're using the right income for the right year. And then if you do a professional judgment decision, that you process that FAFSA or WASFA all of the way through the process. And there should, in the very near future, be the ability to make corrections on the WASFA. We are oh so close. We can't hardly stand it, but we're not quite at the finish line and hoping to have that out very, very soon. When you're entering data here, make sure you don't put $ signs or cents in, and that this is the only location you can put negative numbers.
Okay, in the CTC process, legacy process, if the student is dependent, the parent's AGI and untaxed income is reported in the correct format. And if the student is independent, the student's AGI and untaxed income is reported in the file in the correct format. And negative incomes will be reported. So got that all taken care of for you. Carla?
Becky, just to make sure that if the AGI is absent, then it's computing all those fields together?
Yes.
From your system? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. When you are reporting your expected family contribution, again, just if you have done a professional judgment, making sure it's processed through the Department of Ed and or us for the WASFA is critical when you're submitting your ICE or WASFA data and we're trying to do matches. We do ask that you not report institutional methodology calculations. We do resort to the federal. When you are reporting your cost of attendance, We recognize that you have many, many different student budgets, and just ask that you ensure that the cost of attendance, need duration, and expected family contribution are reported for all the same periods. So if you have a 9-month COA, you would report a 9-month need duration and a 9-month ESC. Conversely, if you have a 3-month COA, then your need duration is 3 months, and your ESC should be for 3 months. In the need amount, we are asking that you do not report negative values, and so it needs to be a 0 if it otherwise would have been negative.
SM 9738, our trusty little unit record job, will generate an error message on the report if the need amount invalid. If the need amount is not the cost of attendance minus the combined student and parent contribution. So that's one thing you will, if something is not set up right on a student, this will show up on the error report for you to go in and correct. Carla?
And as you're looking at your need duration, if it's your policy to have a 9-month, let's say you have a 9-month budget and the student leaves one term, you're not required to recalculate everything to a 3-month duration. You can, but you're not required to. But if you do one, please do all 3 fields. This is a common issue that we have to address when we're reviewing reports. So again, consistency for the period of time across all 3. I think you all are pretty familiar with the enrollment status and terms. We do have some clock hours out there, so they have a little bit different chart, but again, it's displayed here. And if you have terms that are a little different than others, there's date fields here for you to be able to establish which one your term fits into. And when you are doing the report, we are asking that you report the final awards and the disbursement level that the student was paid at. So enrollment at the time of disbursement is what we're after. If a student later withdraws or changes their award, but they were still paid at a higher amount, you're going to report that higher enrollment level. And you will get a report that tells you if there are any differences so that you can verify and correct. This does check against Seesaw, so it will pop out and say this doesn't match. Since awards are tied to tuition and fees, it's really important that we're getting the full picture, including if you have students receiving waivers. And so there's 2 different buckets that you report the value of those in, whether if they're need-based, it would go in that bucket. If they're non-need-based institutional, it would go in that one. When you're reporting your state work study, you have 2 different award codes for those to report, one for on-campus, one for off-campus. And if you are reporting, I think in your case, you guys are all reporting gross earnings anyways, and so you shouldn't run into issues where the amounts don't add up to what was previously reported. For your institutional gift aid, you have 2 buckets. And so need-based typically is your WASPA, FAFSA-based awards, and your non-need is the ones that don't require the filing of a FAFSA or a WASPA. Some examples of other types of state aid that you may encounter are listed here. And there are some programs that may not have expenditures or have had expenditures last year, but because they are still viable programs, we do continue to include them and will until they sunset, essentially.
And I just wanted to jump in at this point. A complete list of all the aid categories and corresponding processing table entries will be included in the unit record manual that will be coming out shortly. And again, I will send a notice to DERF and AID when that documentation is available and when the 1819 SM 9738J is available. please do not try to run SM9738J until you see my notice. If you try to run it for 1819, it will fail, and we don't want that to happen. So, but it should be coming out in the next day or so. Okay, Carla?
Actually, it's over to Marla now. She's going to cover edits.
Except do we want to open it?
But we're going to pause just real quick and give people a chance to ask questions if they have any.
Okay, hearing none, I will remute.
Hi, I'm Marla Skelly, and I've been with WASAC almost 2 full years. Prior to that, like Carla, I was in an institution for a number of years and then left to the dark side for a while, and here I am back. I get to talk about your edits. The reason we need edits is because they will help ensure the data quality that we are receiving. And you'll notice that edits are softer for students receiving only non-need-based federal loans. And they're also softer for students not receiving FAFSA or WASPA required aid types. Appendix C is your friend. So in the manual on page 45, when you go to Appendix C, you'll see examples of errors that will prevent your files from uploading. So those things we've talked about a little bit. If your header row is missing or invalid, and that could be something as simple as incorrect spellings on the column heads, duplicate social security numbers, if there are any invalid codes, or if there are blanks reported in required fields, make sure you look at all 12 items. We got a question about what does a softer edit mean?
I think quite often it may mean that it's not a non-overwritable edit. There's more opportunity for you to explain
what the edit's all about.
Yeah.
We have examples here now of non-overwritable edits, and those would be things like your total aid reported is 0. And these are on page 46 to 48 in the manual, again, Appendix C. You have a non-resident with a state need grant or other state aid. That's not possible to do, so that we'll throw an edit. Your number in college is greater than family size, and you all have seen some of these, I'm certain. And you don't have a valid institutional state work study allocation in the portal. And as Carla mentioned, this is a new edit. You won't be able to override this if you don't have a state work study allocation. A non-overridable edit must be corrected before you can move forward. For overridable edit examples, you again refer to Appendix C on pages 46 to 48. If you have need amount is 0 with need-based aid, your budget changed with dropped credits as an example. Your year in school for aid types or federal grad plus loans. So this is one where the student may have graduated mid-year and moved from senior to a grad student. That's something you'll need to override and explain to us that the student graduated, and then we know what's going on there. Date of birth outside the normal range. You may have some older folks at your institution or even some that might be younger. And your cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution does not equal the need amount reported by the college. So just keep in mind you may correct the edit or enter an override reason on the student record for these examples.
The edits in the SM9738J job mimic as many of the WASAC edits as we can. Things that, like the new one of the state work study allocation, that's not something we can check in the processing of running SM9738. But the other edits, the core edits, those will show up when you run SM9738. Just wanted to mention that students with the errors are included in the CSV file, except students whose award amounts are 0 and students have an award that isn't entered in a CIS WAT processing table entry. In other words, the process doesn't know where to place them. What bucket should that go into? So it'll exclude them. They will show up on the reports with an error. One change we made, this has been several years ago, but I'm still excited about it, is the C report, which is the actual error report. You can sort it several different ways. One is now by error message and then student, or students by error message. And I think that has helped you guys with your cleanup. Marla?
Thank you. So here are just a few reminders. Make sure you keep your override comments concise and to the point, but with sufficient detail to directly address the edit message. You don't have a lot of room to write the reason, so as succinct as possible is a good thing. When you're reporting family income using your state need grant income calculation, you don't use the total income field from the FAFSA. It should match the reported income in the Seesaw student record for 2018-19. And so basically what we're asking you to do is, when you're calculating the family income for a dependent student, you're counting the parent's adjusted gross income, or the AGI, and non-taxable income. You're not going to include the student's income. But when you are calculating family income for an independent student, you're counting the student's AGI and their non-taxable income and that of the spouse if they're married. For both dependent and independent students, if the AGI is not present, then you want to use the sum of all taxable plus non-taxable income for those particular, either the parent or the student, whatever applies to dependent or independent. And a couple of other notes. The financial aid administrator may, but you don't have to, subtract for the following allowable exclusions: taxable earnings from need-based employment programs, such as federal or state work study, need-based employment portions of fellowships and assistantships, taxable student grant and scholarship aid reported to the IRS and the AGI. This includes things like AmeriCorps benefits, as well as grant and scholarship portions of fellowships and assistantships, untaxed combat pay or special combat pay, and earnings from work under a cooperative education program offered by a college. Just keep in mind that Title IV grant aid should be subtracted from the base income regardless of whether it was taxed or untaxed. And one area that is often missed is that child support income must be excluded from income calculations for less than half-time students, but it doesn't need to be excluded from other enrollment categories, just less than half-time. And veterans benefits are treated in the same manner as for the purposes of eligibility for Title IV financial aid. Additional reminders: when you report an adjusted expected family contribution according to the need duration, if a student attended less than full-time, full year, if your standard practice is to do so, need, COA, and duration must all be consistent. So it's really predicated on what your policies are. Also, we want you to report all known race categories for each student, even where Hispanic origin is marked Y. This eliminates gaps in our research data. We get requests for this kind of data frequently.
Okay, I thought I'd just quickly go over the basic steps. The steps are to reconcile your awards with your expenditure data. You run the job, the magic job, to post the year in school to the financial aid tab. Run the job to update academic hours on the academic tab. Run the job to update resident status from SMS. There's a data express procedure to run to determine if an award code was used during the 2018-19 year. If not, you could remove that from one of the processing table entries. And then update your CIS WAT processing table. Then you run the job, SM9738J, in preliminary mode, review the reports, correct errors. Then when you are ready and everything looks good to you, run SM9738J in final mode to generate the final reports and the CSV file. You would download the CSV file from the HPUX to your local network drive using screen SM9724, and then you upload that CSV file to the WASAC portal.
This is Carla. Just a point, again, as we're running this marathon and handing the baton back and forth, this is one area where you think you're done, you've corrected all your errors after you are through the HP processes. You do the upload, and then in some instances, there are additional edits that could appear once you're into the Seesaw or into the unit record system in WASAC's portal. So we try to catch as many between the two as we can, but there are some edits that Becky had talked about earlier. For example, state work study allocation piece, that's not data that they have to run edits against. And so we've had schools call and say, well, I cleaned up all my edits, why am I getting more? Well, it's because we have more data.
Yes. Good point, Carla. Yes.
Okay, so now tips and best practices. I can't stress enough that we would love for you to upload your CSV file early. Please don't wait for the deadline. We didn't really finish the review of all of the schools. We had some late schools come in, very late, and we were unable to compile all the information until into the second week of January. And we're already receiving requests from legislative staff and other stakeholders much earlier than that. So if you are able, please try to complete the unit record as early as possible. Review the 2018-19 unit record manual and training materials, and test your upload using the portal training environment. We have the URL on this slide, so you have the ability to upload it, test it, see if it works. Keep in mind, though, whatever you upload, it'll be gone the next day, because training is information clears out overnight. So whatever you want to do, you need to make sure you're doing it in the same day. Use your unit record informational reports to check for consistency and validity. And the CTC should review the State Board's 2018-19 unit record manual. Contact WASAC with questions or problems that are not addressed in the unit record manual. We try really hard to keep it updated and pertinent, but if you run across something that doesn't make sense or you think is missing, just let us know so that we can update it. We will send a notice when this session has been posted to the website and is available for you to share with each other. Do you have questions on this part or the presentation so far? We've unmuted you.
There is a question. Okay, it says, can all HP jobs be run in HP use unit record test?
Maybe a Becky question?
Is that a Becky question? Hang on a second, Becky, and I'll unmute you. There you are.
Hi, this is from Chantel at Bellingham. Do you mean unit record test, meaning the training site at WASAC, or? Yeah, the train. So what she's asking is, well, yes, I'll just answer for that. Chantel, if you go ahead and create, do all the steps, and then run SM9738J in final mode, download the file, you can I just heard you can upload that to the training site, WASAC training site portal, and run it through its thing, its edits, so you can get an idea of if there's additional items to be cleaned up. And then if so, then you can clean that up in FAM and then rerun the SM9738J again. Does that make sense?
Becky, you said that that's not ready yet, right? 9738's not ready yet?
Correct. It's not quite ready yet. It should be available in the next couple days.
I think most of you are familiar with our portal site, and our web address is located at the top of the screen. There are a couple of other ways to get there. You can go through our main WASAC website by clicking the administration menu option, and then under that drop-down box is an option for the portal. If you click that link, it will take you to this landing page. Once you're here, you can get into the portal in a couple of different ways. If you're working directly with the unit record report and aren't planning on working on any other program immediately, you may want to consider clicking this link down here under the Financial Aid Administrators column, and that will take you to a direct login for the unit record report. There is still a login process, but once you've logged in, it takes you directly there. If you have other things that you might be working in the portal, we suggest using the traditional login, which is up in the right-hand corner. Once you've logged in, go to your Home tab and then select Programs, and from that drop-down, select Unit Record. That will take you to the Welcome page. If this is the first time you've selected Unit Record for this particular reporting year. The next step would be to click Proceed to Upload. If it's not the first time, if you've already uploaded a file here, the next and subsequent times that you check in on this site, it will take you to the last known screen that you were working on, whether it is ready to begin, in progress, or submitted. The next step is to browse your computer and find the CSV file that you'd like to upload. Once you've located it, click the Upload button. If you have a large file, you will see this processing bar, and it will give you a sense of how quickly the portal is uploading your information. If you have a fairly small file, it will run by so rapidly you may not even see that processing bar. If you're having major difficulties with your upload file, it will error out. And as Marla was talking about, one of those is if there is a problem with your CSV header. But whatever the error is, this screen will tell you what row to find that error in and what the error is. In that case, there is no moving forward with that file, so you would click this discard. Correct your error in the original file, and then save it, and then attempt another reload. On the other hand, if you've already clicked the upload and it appears to be processing, but you realize that you've selected the wrong file or that there may be a major error with that file, you can interrupt that upload process. And this is particularly helpful for schools that have thousands of students, because it takes quite a while to process through that. So you will see a discard upload button. If you click that, it will stop the upload in its tracks and discard that file. And in that case, then you would go back up to that upload file screen, select a different file, and send it up. Once your upload is completed, you will see a summary chart, and just take a quick peek at it. See if the distribution of your students by their enrollment status appears to be correct. If everything looks fine, go ahead and proceed to edits. If it appears that there's a problem, perhaps the numbers look kind of cattywampus for what you know your population to be, you can select this discard upload button and then start back again by selecting another file or rerunning your job. The next thing you'll see is that on this main edit screen, as your file is being processed, your edits will show up at the bottom of the screen. There will be a refresh button. You can click that periodically if you have a large file, and it will pull up additional edits into your screen. While this process is going on, you can begin editing your records, but know that as long as this button is visible, there are still records being processed for edits. Once all the edits have been processed, this refresh button will disappear. You have the option of processing your edits in many different ways. You can use this drop-down box, or you can select one of these column headers, click that, and it will resort your file by that particular header. Some people like to have all of the same edits done at the same time, the same error codes, but that is up to you. You can just go through them as you see them come up in that initial processing. If you have any non-overridable edits, you will be unable to move forward till those non-overridable edits are addressed. And in a non-overridable edit case, that file must be corrected. You do not have the opportunity to provide us with a reason why you've placed that information as it is. So in order to fix that record, you would click the Social Security number for that record, and it will bring up that individual's record. All of the errors for that student will be shown at the top. They will be shown in red. If they're overwritable, it will have an overwrite button. Otherwise, it will show that that same little stop sign icon. You can choose to do the overwrites first or the non-overwritable edit. Just know that you can't move beyond without addressing that. If you are going to correct that record, you would click directly in either that drop-down box or in the field for the program and make the correction right there. Remember to click your Save button. If you neglect to do that, the changes that you've placed in that record will not be retained. On the other hand, if you feel that you have a valid reason for the information that you've provided to us, you can click the Override button, and it will open up this pop-up box. There is a space there for you to provide us with the reason for that, and then once again, be sure that you click the Save button on that pop-up. If you've been processing several of these and you want to take a look at your reason just to be sure that you've covered it adequately, you can hover your cursor over the little eye icon in the blue circle, and a yellow pop-up box will show, and you can see what your comment was there. Once you have addressed all of the edit errors that are on that main edit page, click to continue. I do want to make a quick note about this Show State Need Grant College Bound Scholarship and Passport to College as Differences report. This particular button will take you to those discrepancy reports. However, it's in a part of the portal where it's more for review and information rather than continuing with the progression of your submission. So use this particular button only whenever you're doing some additional reviews. I suggest that you click to continue, which will actually take you to this discrepancies report. And you'll see 4 different tabs. The first 3 are for the 3 main programs. And what you'll notice is that if you have already addressed the override or the error in that main edit page, you will see a Y in the override requested column. Those indicate edits that have already been addressed. If you see a blank on a row, that was an edit that bypassed the main edit screen for one reason or another. And it still needs to have your input telling us why you feel that is correct, or to make a correction. If you have quite a large number of these in any one of these tabs, you can download the differences to a CSV file, review those, and then come back to make the correction. And the way you would make the correction in this case, instead of clicking the Social Security number, you would click this notation here under the unit record, and that should open up that student record. If you find that you may not have gotten an edit for a student record, but you realize there is something that you need to change or correct, you can search for that record by going to the top of the screen, finding the unit record, and then clicking the search button there, and that will open up the student record as well. On the other hand, if you realize that you've totally omitted a student record, go back to this main edit page and then click Add a New Unit Record to the report. What that will do is it will open up a blank unit record. Please complete both tabs, both the student demographics and need tab and the student aid tab, as completely as possible, and remember to click Save before you leave that record. On the financial aid tab, this is just showing you the types of fields you'll find on that. At the top, you'll see the 5 different options for the terms. Click whatever term you need to change the enrollment status, select the correct one, and it should retain. These are just a list of the different types of programs you'll find in that unit record. Generally, you'll find them vertically on that page. We show them here horizontally just so that you can see them all at once. The 4th tab in the discrepancies report is this missing state need grant unserved students. And what this report shows are students for whom you've reported in Seesaw that they are unserved, but for whom we don't see a unit record uploaded into this file. The reason this is important is that your next year's allocation will be based on not only your served students, but also on your legitimately unserved students. And this will give us a sense of whether the information that's reported in Seesaw is still correct at the end of the year, or whether changes may have been overlooked as the year went by. And this is your opportunity to let us know that. The first thing you would do is to click this button to download a CSV. That way you can see the entire file if there is more than one page of these. Take a look first to see if there are any students that you recognize may have received need-based aid for whom you have omitted a unit record. In that case, go back to the main edit page and select the add a unit record, and then complete both tabs of that and save the document. Once you have done that, that student record will disappear from this discrepancies tab. So if you find very many of those, you might want to rerun the CSV report so that you're working with a clean report. Otherwise, there is a place in the comment section where you can indicate that you've added a record and that particular record is no longer part of that file. At the top of this page is an example of a report on download. I have highlighted in red the boxes or the columns in which we are asking that you fill in information. All of these other columns are pre-filled with information that we have available to us in the Seesaw record. So we ask that you not overwrite or delete from this particular download any of the information that you see there. What we want you to do is to complete it as you see down in this bottom half. If you have a record, say in this case Betty Bradley, you look all the way across and all of the information that is shown in Seesaw is correct. All you need to do is place a yes or a Y in that column H, where it says indicate yes if all terms are okay. That's all you need to do. You don't need to make any changes to that row. On the other hand, if you see that there is missing or inaccurate information, as in the case of Erin Andrews, in this case you originally showed summer 1 not enrolled, fall full-time, winter full-time, spring not enrolled, and summer 2 not enrolled. However, your final records show that he was enrolled less than half-time for fall, half-time for winter, and full-time for spring. So in order to notify us of those changes, make those notations in the appropriate column associated with those terms. Be sure that you save that file to your PC and then upload it as an attachment to a secure email and send it back to us so that we can review that information. If you're in the right discrepancies report area, you will see this additional yellow box with a send an email button. If you click that, it will open up a secure email that you can attach that file to and send it back to us. It comes to us through the portal and goes directly into the unit record mailbox that the three of us monitor. And it does come to us securely because it comes to us through the portal. As you're getting ready to submit the report and working in this discrepancies report, in any one of those tabs, you may find a problem with a Social Security number. Sometimes it's just one entry with an incorrect social number or ITIN or DACA number or WASFA number. Quite often, though, what you'll see are two people with the same names, different social numbers. One will show an entry in the unit record, and the other one will show that the Seesaw record has a matching amount. That is quite often a clue that this is the same individual and that the Social Security number needs to be corrected either in the unit record or in Seesaw. If the incorrect number is in the unit record, you have the ability to go back, search for that record, and make the correction directly in the unit record, save it. That should eliminate that duplicate entry. And it will also remove them from the error report as long as it matches the other information that's in Seesaw in terms of the awards. On the other hand, if it turns out that the error is in Seesaw, that will require assistance from WASAC staff. And how we ask that you notify us is to use that same secure email button. And in that, that email, tell us which student it is, what the correct Social Security number should be, and what the incorrect number is in Seesaw. And when you send that to us, we will forward that to our IT staff, and they will make that correction in Seesaw, and that should also then realign the information here and eliminate that error. Now, if you've addressed all of these, you can then go back to the edit list if you realize there are other kinds of edits that you need to make, or you can click to continue. At this point, you're very close to click that final submit button. We ask that you look at this institutional totals report. It is a comparison of the information that you've submitted to us by program category and by numbers of recipients over the last 4 years. There are percent change columns for a comparison of the last 2 years that are shown, in this case 2017-18 and 2018-19. Take a look and see whether there are any surprises, or if there are any areas in this last column or in that percent change column that look like there might be an issue. If there is an issue with the data, sometimes a program will show as having no dollars spent and no recipients where the prior year may have had figures in there. It might be an indication that some of the data was reported in the wrong column. At that point, you can go back to the edit list, which is here. That option is always available to you on almost every screen, so that you can correct that. On the other hand, if everything looks like the data is valid, click to continue. I do want to mention one caveat at this point. This is a preliminary report, which means that if you have reported to us all of your student data, it will include all of those records that have non-need-based student only, as well as your need-based students. So some of these percentage changes may be artificially high. And so what we do is we ask that you make a PDF of this particular report for your record and mark it preliminary, so that you can use it next year or to compare to the previous year's preliminary report. As we go through the review process for this data, we may call and ask you why there are some differences. Quite often, if we see a change of 10% or more, we will come back and ask you about that. Sometimes that's because this report still contains some of that extraneous information. And if all you have is that final report that comes out in January, you may not have the ability to understand why you see the change. Please make a copy of the preliminary report and keep it in your records in case there are questions, either on our side or on yours. If everything looks pretty good, go ahead and click to continue. Click the Submit Your Unit Record report if you're confident that the information is all correct. You will be given one final opportunity to tell us no, you want to go back and take another look at that report. Once you've clicked OK, it does close the records for the year, and in order to make additional changes, you will need the assistance of WASAC staff. If you do find there are other errors after you've submitted the report, please contact us right away. It's a simple thing to reopen your report in order for you to make those corrections. We prefer to do that now rather than later in the process because it does get to be a little bit more of a hassle as we're approaching the end where we're finalizing profile reports and whatnot. If you did not make a copy of that preliminary totals report, you can do so from this point. This is the same report. And you know, so I can't stress enough how much I would ask you to do that. Once you've clicked that yes, indeed, you want to submit, you will see this screen, and the evidence that it's been submitted and received are in two different places here. You can log out, and I do want to mention you can log out at any other point as you're working in your unit record. You don't have to do it all in one day. I know most of you already know that, but I thought I'd mention that here just in case there are those that may be new or first time. You can come back at any time, check into the reports, and look at any one of these three summary reports. After we have finalized all of the unit records and deleted the extraneous information in January of 2020, please come back and make a copy, a PDF copy of the final program totals report so that you can see a comparison with what your data looks like after the non-need-based records have been removed. The institutional profile reports will be made available in January after those have been removed, and then these other reports will become active. These three here at the top will be available to you up until the time we open the next year's unit record, and then they disappear, which is why we ask that you make copies along the way, because at some point those disappear and all you have access to are these profile reports down at the bottom.
When you start, as Carla had talked about it early on as being kind of a journey or a race, or I picked up on race part because of the baton, when you start this process, if you do need assistance with your setup in FAM, running any of the jobs, correcting errors, and downloading the CSV, please don't hesitate to contact our customer support email. We do, our management does want us to remind you that any questions like this or help, please go through our support desk so that a ticket can be created and logged and then sent to the appropriate person. So that email, I think most of you probably already have it memorized because you're all good, you follow that, is support@sbctc.edu.
Excuse me, if any of you have questions or need assistance from us, our contact information is listed here. We do ask that you use the unit record at wasac.wa.gov email because traffic gets pretty busy with questions, and that way there's always more than one person monitoring in case one person's out or on travel status. So please use the unit record email to the extent you can. Our phone numbers are listed there as well. And we will open the mic for any questions.
The mic is open. If you have any questions, this is your opportunity to send those to us, and we will address them. Okay. Hearing none, we want to thank you for the dedication of your time and your afternoon to learning about the upcoming changes to the unit record. We want to thank you for that and ask you to please send us any of your questions as you are working with your files. We are here to help in any way possible to make sure that this process is as streamlined as possible for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.